Most people see a dollar as something to spend. The wealthy see it as a seed. And the miracle of a seed is this: you plant it small, you water it daily, and one day it grows into a tree that feeds generations. The difference isn't in the dollar, it's in the discipline of the one who holds it. The real question is, are you eating your seed or are you planting your future? Money doesn't start with money. It starts with how you think. The rich don't think about what they can spend. They think about what they can grow. Wealth isn't one big leap. It's a series of small, disciplined steps. And here's the truth. If you can change the way you think about a single dollar, you can change the way your future looks forever. The question is, are you spending your dollars or planting them? Let me tell you something I've learned about building wealth. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment. And it's not about waiting until you've got a mountain of money before you begin. Most people spend their whole lives waiting for the right amount, the right season, the right opportunity. And by the time they think they're ready, life has already passed them by. The truth is, wealth doesn't demand that you start big. It demands that you start. That's the philosophy. Courage, not capital, is the first step. If all you've got is $10, start with $10. If all you've got is 20, then 20 is your beginning. You see, it's not the size of the seed that matters most. It's whether or not you had the discipline to plant it. I remember when I was a young man, struggling, broke, and not sure how to make my way. Someone told me, don't wait until you've got thousands saved up before you invest. Start with the pennies in your pocket. That sounded too simple at first, almost insignificant, but over time, I realized the principle was life-changing. Because when you plant small seeds consistently, you train your mind, you train your habits, and eventually, the harvest takes care of itself. Most people underestimate what a little bit, done consistently, can become. They think, what's $10 going to do? What's $20 going to change? But that's the same as asking, what good is planting one apple seed? The answer is, it doesn't look like much today. But given time, care, and patience, that seed can produce enough fruit to feed you for years and even provide seeds for future generations. That's the strategy. Stop waiting for the big pile and begin investing the small amounts you already have. Every wealthy person you admire today once stood where you stand now with the decision, do I begin with the little I have or do I keep waiting? And those who began, even when the amount looked small, built habits that carried them forward. See, waiting for perfect conditions is one of the greatest illusions of life. There will never be a perfect condition. The bills won't stop. The challenges won't go away, and the economy won't suddenly align itself with your dreams. But discipline says, I'll carve out $10. Even when it feels impossible, I'll set aside $20, even when I could easily spend it on something trivial. I'll plant seeds instead of eating them all. Now here's the practical step. Pick a number this week, $10, 20, 50, whatever feels like a start, and put it into a long-term investment account. Don't wait for next week. Don't say, I'll do it when I get that raise or when I pay off that loan. Because if you won't do it with $10, you won't do it with 10,000. If you won't honor the small beginnings, you won't handle the larger ones when they come. Wealth is built on the back of habits, not windfalls. The beauty is, once you start, momentum builds. That 10 turns into 20, that 20 into 100, and soon you'll look back and see a foundation growing beneath your feet that seemed impossible just a few years earlier. And even more important than the dollars themselves is the person you become in the process. You become disciplined. You become intentional. You become the kind of person who can be trusted with more because you proved yourself faithful with little. So the challenge is simple. Don't wait for the perfect amount. Take what you have, start where you are, and begin today. Because small beginnings, honored consistently, create big endings. That's how wealth starts. It starts small, but it thinks big. When I first began to understand the laws of wealth, I realized there was one principle so powerful that it could turn an ordinary man into a wealthy one if he simply respected it. That principle is compounding. Now, compounding doesn't look like much in the beginning, and that's why most people overlook it. It's like planting a tiny tree. For the first year or two, it seems like nothing's happening. The growth is slow, almost invisible, and you might be tempted to say, this isn't working. But give that tree time, water it, nurture it, and soon you'll see its roots go deep. Its trunk grows strong, and eventually, its branches provide shade and fruit. That's exactly how money works, when you put it into motion with patience and discipline. The philosophy is simple. Money grows slowly at first, but with time, it begins to multiply in ways that surprise you. The wealthy don't just look for one-time wins, they respect the process of letting their money work for them. Think of it like this. A dollar saved and invested isn't just a dollar, it's a worker. And that worker goes out, earns a little return, and then, instead of bringing the return home to spend it, you send both the dollar and its earnings back to work again. Soon, you don't just have one worker, you've got a team, and eventually, you've got an army. That's compounding. The strategy, then, is not to harvest too early. Most people sabotage their own growth because the moment they see a little gain, they spend it. Imagine planting seeds in your garden and then digging them up 2 weeks later because you got impatient. You'd never see the harvest. Yet that's what many do with their investments. They get a dividend, and instead of reinvesting it, they buy something trivial. They get interest, and instead of letting it roll back in, they cash it out for a fleeting pleasure. Wealth is built by those who reinvest their harvest back into the ground over and over again. I remember when I first saw the power of this in my own life. I invested a small amount, and at the end of the year, I could hardly see any change, but I kept going, kept reinvesting, kept waiting. A few years later, I looked back and I was stunned by how much had multiplied. That's when I realized that compounding is less about math and more about character. It tests your patience, your discipline, and your belief in the future. Most people fail not because compounding doesn't work, but because they quit too soon. Here's the practical step you can take immediately. If you have investments that pay dividends or interest, don't cash them out. Set up automatic reinvestment. Let the earnings buy more shares, more units, more seeds. Don't touch it. Don't interrupt the process. Let time and discipline do their work. And if you don't yet have such an investment, start small, open an account, plant a seed, and set it to grow on its own. Compounding doesn't require genius, but it does require patience. It doesn't require large sums, but it does require consistency. And if you'll respect the process, if you'll water the tree, protect it, and let it grow, you'll look back one day in awe at how something so small became something so great. Because compounding always works, it's just waiting for you to work it. One of the quickest ways to lose money is to put it somewhere you don't understand. I've seen it too many times. People hear about the next big thing, whether it's a hot stock, a flashy business, or a deal that promises the moon. They rush in because someone else said it's good, but they never stop to ask themselves a simple question, do I really understand this? And before long, the money is gone, and so is the excitement. That's not wealth building, that's gambling. The wealthy don't gamble with their future. They study, they prepare, and they only plant their seeds in soil they've tested. The philosophy is straightforward. Ignorance is expensive, but knowledge is profitable. Every dollar you invest in ignorance is like throwing seed on concrete. It won't grow. But when you invest with understanding, Every dollar has a chance to multiply because you've placed it in fertile ground. The difference between losing money and growing money is often just one thing: knowledge. The strategy is to slow down long enough to learn before you leap. Don't get caught up in the noise of quick gains or flashy opportunities. Learn the basics. If you're interested in stocks, understand how companies earn, how dividends work, and how to read the basics of financial statements. If real estate excites you, learn about location, cash flow, and the difference between assets and liabilities. If business calls you, study marketing, sales, and systems before you pour in your savings. The point is not to know everything. That's impossible. The point is to know enough to be confident that you're not gambling, but making an educated decision. I remember when I was first introduced to an investment opportunity. It looked attractive on the surface, and I was tempted to jump in, but I paused. I asked questions. I did my homework. The more I studied, the more I realized it wasn't as solid as it seemed. That hesitation saved me thousands. On the other hand, I also remember the first time I invested in something I did understand, a small business. I had studied the industry, learned the basics, and asked the right questions. It wasn't a risk-free venture, but it was an intelligent one. And because I knew what I was doing, I not only kept my money safe, but multiplied it. So here's a practical step you can take right away. Commit to reading one beginner-friendly book on investing this month. Choose a book that breaks down the basics in a way you can understand. As you read, don't just absorb the information, apply one principle. If you learn about compound interest, set up an account and experience it. If you read about cash flow, look at your own finances and track it. The act of applying knowledge cements it in your mind. Remember, the rich don't need to chase every shiny opportunity because they know the secret. They don't have to know everything. They just have to understand enough to make wise decisions. Wealth doesn't reward speed. It rewards wisdom. So study first, invest later, and you'll find that knowledge is the greatest investment you'll ever make. If you want to build wealth that lasts, the first place to invest is not in stocks, real estate, or businesses. It's in yourself. Your mind is the greatest asset you will ever own. Money without the wisdom to use it is like a seed without soil. It won't grow. Time and again, I've seen people chase opportunities with all their cash, yet they fail because they neglected the one thing that could have multiplied their success: their own knowledge, skills, and abilities. Investing in yourself pays returns that no market crash or economic downturn can take away. The philosophy is simple but profound. Every dollar you spend on your growth yields the highest return of any investment you'll ever make. Courses, books, seminars, mentors, and coaching are not expenses. They are seeds you plant in fertile soil. Unlike many investments, the knowledge and skills you gain compound over time. The more you learn, the faster you grow. The faster you grow, the better your decisions, and the better your decisions, the more wealth you create. I've lived this truth. Early in my career, I had very little money, but I committed to investing what I could in learning, in attending seminars, and in reading. That small investment, time after time, returned exponentially. The strategy is to dedicate a consistent portion of your income to self-investment. Think of it as paying yourself first, not in cash, but in wisdom and skill. Start small if you must, but be consistent. Books, online courses, workshops, and mentorships are the soil, water, and sunlight for your personal growth. Each new concept you learn and apply adds layers of value to your life, creating a foundation for bigger and more intelligent financial moves. The returns are not immediate in cash, but in decisions, confidence, and opportunities that lead to wealth. Here's a practical step. Create a self-investment budget of at least 5-10% of your monthly income. Write it down and treat it as sacred. Spend it on reading, courses, mentorships, or anything that grows your mind. Track your learning and application just as you would track your portfolio. Remember, money invested in yourself cannot be taken from you, stolen, or devalued. I recall when I first invested in a personal development seminar, I had to borrow money to attend. At the time, it felt risky, but the knowledge, confidence, and connections I gained from that single weekend transformed my ability to earn, invest, and create opportunities. That investment paid for itself many times over. So, start with yourself. Plant the seeds of knowledge, water them with consistent learning, and watch as your capacity to earn, invest, and build wealth multiplies. Self-investment is not optional. It is the first and most powerful step toward real wealth. Think about every dollar you spend as a soldier. It can either march away and vanish into nothingness, or it can be deployed to work tirelessly for you. Most people spend unconsciously, and their money leaves them as quickly as it arrives. The philosophy of wealth is simple. Make every dollar serve a purpose, and let it generate more than it consumes. The rich understand this principle. They don't merely spend, they strategically allocate resources to enhance skills, create assets, and multiply opportunities. Money, when deployed wisely, becomes a faithful worker that compounds over time. The strategy is to turn ordinary expenses into investments that increase your earning potential. For example, entertainment often consumes money without producing value, but if you replace part of that spending with education, books, audiobooks, online courses, seminars, you're essentially redirecting money from consumption into growth. Even a small monthly subscription can create a huge return over time if it develops knowledge or skills that improve your income. Similarly, tools, software, and platforms that make your work more efficient or that enable you to build something of value are not costs, they are investments in your future self. I've seen countless times how small adjustments like this transform ordinary paychecks into the seedbed for real wealth. A practical step to begin is to review your last month's expenses and identify at least one recurring cost that could be redirected into growth. Perhaps it's a streaming service that you rarely watch. Swap it for a personal development audiobook or a subscription to a platform that teaches investing or business skills. Another example. Instead of dining out every week, buy a book that teaches a high-income skill. The key is not deprivation, it's reallocation. Money spent on growth compounds, whereas money spent only for comfort disappears. This simple adjustment gradually reshapes your financial trajectory. I remember early in my career, I realized I was spending more on leisure than on learning. I made a conscious decision to redirect just $20 a month from casual spending into books and seminars. The impact was astonishing. Each dollar invested in my mind returned opportunities, insights, and connections that far exceeded the original cost. Over time, these small investments compounded into major gains, both financially and personally. So, examine your expenses this month. Ask yourself, which dollars can start working for me instead of just leaving me? Make one change, turn a recurring cost into an investment, and begin training your money to grow instead of vanish. This simple, disciplined action sets the foundation for wealth that multiplies, not merely accumulates. Wealth without direction is like a river without a channel. It flows, but it may never reach where it can create real value. The philosophy here is simple yet profound. Small investments gain significance when guided by purpose, vision, and legacy. The wealthy don't just think about the next paycheck or the next acquisition. They think in terms of generations. Every dollar invested today, every skill developed, every relationship nurtured can ripple far beyond your own lifetime. Legacy transforms ordinary wealth into something that endures, something that shapes lives long after you're gone. Purpose gives power to money, converting fleeting resources into lasting impact. The strategy is to align your financial decisions with long-term values. Ask yourself, will this investment, purchase, or decision benefit only me today? Or can it create value for those who come after me? Whether it's contributing to your children's education, building a family business, supporting community initiatives, or creating charitable programs, every small investment made with legacy in mind compounds into an enduring wealth ecosystem. This mindset shifts the way you evaluate risk and reward. You no longer chase superficial gains. You focus on meaningful impact that can be multiplied through time. It's the principle of intentional compounding, not just in money, but in influence, values, and opportunity. A practical step to start is to write down one wealth principle you want to pass on. Something simple but powerful. It could be the importance of disciplined saving, the value of continuous learning, or the principle of giving before taking. Then, live by it consistently. Every decision, no matter how small, becomes a brick in the foundation of your legacy. Teach this principle through your actions as much as your words, so it becomes embedded in the culture of your family, community, or organization. The cumulative effect over years is remarkable. Small, consistent actions, aligned with legacy thinking, create an unstoppable momentum, much like a river, carving canyons over decades. I've observed people who invested not just for themselves, but with a vision for others. Their small, deliberate choices, saving a portion of income, mentoring a young entrepreneur, funding education, or creating community programs, eventually resulted in a wealth and influence far greater than any single asset could provide. These actions didn't require enormous capital at first, but they required vision, purpose, and patience. So today, start thinking beyond yourself. Identify one principle, one investment, one action that honors your values and benefits the future. Let each small investment you make be guided by the lens of legacy. In doing so, you transform ordinary wealth into something eternal, creating a story, a life, and a fortune that outlasts you. This is how small steps today build an enduring empire for tomorrow. Wealth is not a mysterious force that favors the lucky. It is a direct reflection of the value we create for others. The philosophy is simple yet transformative. Money flows to those who provide solutions. The size of the reward is proportional to the magnitude of the problem solved. If you want wealth to follow you, you must shift your focus from merely earning to genuinely creating value. Every product developed, every service offered, every idea implemented is an opportunity to solve someone's problem. I have seen countless people focus on short-term gains or easy paths, only to find themselves stagnant. True wealth emerges when you invest your energy, time, and creativity into addressing real needs. The strategy here is to consistently ask yourself, how can I make a meaningful difference today? Rather than chasing money directly, concentrate on becoming the person who identifies gaps and delivers solutions. This could be a skill you offer at work, a small business idea that simplifies life for others, or even an innovation in your community. By orienting your actions around value creation, you shift from a scarcity mindset to one of abundance. Opportunities appear, doors open, and networks expand naturally. When you focus on providing something people genuinely want or need, financial rewards follow as a byproduct of the value delivered. A practical step to start is to identify one problem this week that you can solve for your workplace, business, or community. Take it seriously and commit to acting on it. It might be as simple as streamlining a process that frustrates coworkers, creating a small product that eases a customer's burden, or mentoring someone who is struggling in their career. Even small acts of value compound over time, enhancing your reputation, skills, and influence. What begins as one small solution often triggers bigger opportunities, as people naturally gravitate toward those who consistently contribute. I have personally witnessed how focusing on value changes the trajectory of a life. Early in my career, I realized that when I prioritized helping others succeed, my own opportunities multiplied. By genuinely improving someone else's situation, whether through advice, skills, or tangible results, the doors to financial gain opened effortlessly. Value creation is the lever that magnifies both wealth and fulfillment. So this week, commit to creating measurable, meaningful value. Find one problem you can solve and dedicate your energy to it. Your financial growth will follow, naturally and inevitably. Because when you serve others with excellence, money becomes a reflection of the problems you solve. This is the essence of lasting wealth. It always follows value. Wealth has a curious relationship with time. It loves speed but respects timing. Opportunities often arrive quietly, disguised as small chances, and they don't linger forever. The philosophy here is that money favors those who act decisively, yet it punishes hesitation. Waiting for the perfect moment or overanalyzing every scenario often results in missed chances. Conversely, those who prepare themselves mentally and financially and who move swiftly when opportunity knocks tend to accumulate wealth faster and with more confidence. The rich understand that time is an ally and that speed in action, coupled with wisdom, multiplies results. The strategy, therefore, is to cultivate both awareness and decisiveness. Recognize patterns, study industries, and understand markets so that when a promising opportunity appears, you are ready to act. This does not mean rushing blindly or taking reckless risks. It means reducing hesitation without abandoning caution. By developing a mindset attuned to spotting potential, you learn to distinguish fleeting chances from real prospects. Fast action does not mean impulsivity. It means acting on the knowledge and preparation you have cultivated. Wealth favors those who are alert, prepared, and willing to move. A practical step to implement this principle is to identify one investment opportunity you already understand, whether it's a small stock, a side business, or a savings plan with growth potential. Instead of procrastinating or waiting for a perfect window, make a small, calculated move immediately. Even a modest step forward creates momentum and builds confidence. Over time, these small but decisive actions compound into substantial results. By acting quickly within your understanding, you position yourself to capture growth that slow movers and indecisive individuals miss. I recall early in my career when I hesitated over a small real estate opportunity, only to see it snapped up by someone else. That experience taught me the value of speed tempered with knowledge. I began training myself to evaluate opportunities, make quick decisions on those I understood, and then learn from the outcomes. That approach transformed my wealth trajectory, as I learned that small, timely actions often outperform delayed perfection. So, this week, commit to recognizing one opportunity you understand and taking immediate, small action. Don't let fear or overthinking keep you from moving forward. Wealth rewards those who act swiftly, wisely, and consistently, because speed combined with timing turns small investments into monumental gains. Wealth is often misunderstood. Many people measure success by the raw dollar amounts they earn each month, each year or with each paycheck. But the philosophy behind true financial growth is far subtler. It's not how much you make, it's how much you keep, how efficiently you manage it, and how effectively you grow it. Thinking in percentages rather than absolute dollars gives clarity and perspective. A $5,000 salary with 50% savings is far more powerful than a $10,000 salary with 10% saved. Percentages allow you to see real progress and create habits that compound over time. The strategy, then, is to measure everything in proportion, not just in raw numbers. Income, expenses, debt repayment, and savings should all be analyzed as a percentage of your total resources. This approach exposes inefficiencies and highlights opportunities for improvement. When you consistently evaluate finances this way, you learn the value of incremental improvement. Increasing your savings rate by even a few percentage points compounds dramatically over years. It creates discipline and gives you a measurable path toward wealth, rather than chasing arbitrary dollar goals that can fluctuate or feel overwhelming. A practical step is simple but transformative. Start by calculating what percentage of your monthly income you are currently saving or investing. Once you know your baseline, commit to increasing it by 5% over the next year. This may involve cutting unnecessary expenses, automating contributions to investment accounts, or finding additional income streams. Even a modest improvement, when compounded month after month, year after year, will grow into substantial wealth. It shifts the focus from chasing more income to managing what you already have intelligently. I remember early in my career, I thought increasing my income alone would solve everything. I worked long hours, took extra assignments, and yet my savings barely grew. Then I learned to focus on the percentage of my income saved and invested, and suddenly every dollar had a purpose. The discipline of thinking in percentages turned small earnings into meaningful wealth. It gave me control over money instead of money controlling me. So today, measure your financial habits in percentages, not just dollars. Make small, consistent improvements each month. Even a 5% increase in your savings rate can set you on a path toward financial freedom that raw dollars alone can't provide. Too many people confuse spending with wealth building. Buying the latest gadget, car, or luxury item gives a momentary thrill, but it doesn't create financial independence. Ownership, on the other hand, does. The wealthy understand that true financial power comes from accumulating assets that work for you, shares, properties, businesses, rather than liabilities that work for someone else. Every payment you make on a consumer item is money leaving your pocket forever. Every investment in ownership is money sent out to return multiplied. The shift from being a consumer to being an owner changes everything about your financial trajectory. The strategy is to make deliberate choices that favor ownership over consumption. Begin by examining your daily and monthly spending. Ask yourself, is this purchase going to increase my wealth or just satisfy a temporary desire? Then, make small, intentional swaps. Instead of spending $500 on a gadget you'll enjoy for a year, invest $500 in a company that manufactures that gadget. Instead of taking an expensive vacation, consider putting that money into a dividend-paying stock or a fractional real estate investment. Over time, these small acts of ownership accumulate far more wealth than years of chasing material possessions. Ownership is about putting your money into things that generate returns, appreciate, or create opportunities for future income. A practical step makes this actionable. Start small. Each time you're tempted to buy a luxury item for instant gratification, pause and consider an alternative. Purchase a small ownership stake instead. Buy a share of a company you understand, or put a modest amount into a mutual fund or ETF. The amount doesn't have to be huge. Consistency and discipline compound over time. One share, one small property, or even a tiny business interest might seem insignificant today. but repeated over months and years. These investments form the foundation of wealth. I remember when I first began to practice this principle, I swapped what would have been ordinary purchases for tiny ownership positions in companies I believed in. At first, the returns were modest, but the mindset shift was profound. I stopped thinking of money as something to spend and started thinking of it as something to plant, to nurture, and to grow. The compounding effect wasn't just financial. It changed my behavior, my choices, and ultimately, my freedom. So today, choose ownership over obligation. Every dollar you redirect from consumption to ownership is a seed planted in your financial future. Start small, stay consistent, and let the power of ownership work for you. Wealth is not just a personal achievement. It becomes truly powerful when shared. The act of teaching reinforces knowledge, sharpens understanding, and multiplies impact. When you explain a financial principle to someone else, you solidify it in your own mind, uncover gaps in your thinking, and often see new perspectives you hadn't noticed before. Teaching transforms passive knowledge into active wisdom, and that wisdom has a compounding effect not only on your finances, but on the lives of those you influence. It's the difference between hoarding money and cultivating a financial ecosystem. The strategy here is simple. Share what you're learning. If you study investing, budgeting, or wealth-building habits, take time to discuss these insights with family, friends, or mentees. Invite questions, offer examples from your own life, and encourage reflection. The process of articulating concepts forces clarity and strengthens your confidence in applying them. Teaching also builds a culture of wealth around you. People you influence may start adopting the same practices, creating a network of growth and accountability. Their success, in turn, reflects back on you, reinforcing the principles you practice. Practically, this can be as small as a 5-minute conversation. If you learned about the power of compounding this week, explain it to a friend over coffee. Show them how saving just a small amount regularly can grow into substantial wealth over time. If you read about the importance of passive income, share a concrete example from your own life, a dividend stock, a side business, or rental property. Teaching does not require perfection. It requires sincerity and consistency. I recall when I first began sharing wealth lessons with colleagues and young entrepreneurs. Initially, it was modest, casual discussions, but over time, these conversations became structured mentorship sessions. Not only did my understanding deepen, but I witnessed others apply the concepts and succeed. Their results reinforced my own discipline and expanded my perspective on wealth-building strategies. Each time I taught, the principle became more embedded in my daily practice, and the ripple effect extended far beyond what I could achieve alone. So today, commit to sharing your knowledge. Teach one wealth principle you've learned this week. Explain it, discuss it, and encourage action. In doing so, you multiply not only the value of your wealth, but also the positive influence it can have on others. Wealth grows faster when it flows. As we draw this conversation to a close, I want you to take a moment and think about the principles we've discussed, the small steps, the disciplined routines, the mindset shifts, and the consistent actions that build wealth. So often, people talk about wealth as if it's something that happens to others. They imagine it as a distant dream or an accident of luck. But I want to remind you today that wealth is not something you stumble upon. It is something you build. Wealth is the natural outcome of thought, discipline, and daily action compounded over time. It begins in the mind. Everything you do, every decision you make, every opportunity you recognize is filtered through your mental lens. A poor mindset attracts scarcity, hesitation, and fear. A wealthy mindset, one that sees possibilities instead of obstacles, attracts opportunities, solutions, and momentum. You have to choose which lens you will wear every day. Choose abundance. Choose growth. Choose to see the possibilities where others see barriers. Wealth is, in its essence, the reflection of your thinking. But thinking alone is not enough. Discipline bridges the gap between vision and reality. If you want wealth, you must act daily in alignment with your goals. Daily action, no matter how small, is the compound interest of success. It is the seed you plant consistently that grows into an oak tree. It is the $10 you save today, the extra 30 minutes you dedicate to learning, the call you make to build a relationship, or the investment you initiate that seems tiny now but compounds into a life-changing result over the years. Wealth favors those who take steady steps, not those who wait for perfection or the right moment. You must also learn to value time as much as, or even more than, money. Money comes and goes, but time never returns. Each hour is a unit of your life that you cannot replenish. The wealthy understand this. They invest time into learning, creating, and building systems that multiply their effectiveness. They do not fritter their hours away on trivial distractions. Every day, identify what is high value and what is low value in your life. Cut the low value activities and focus your energy where it produces growth, financially, personally, and emotionally. One of the greatest habits of the wealthy is thinking long term. A spender lives for today. An investor lives for tomorrow and beyond. Every financial decision you make should be measured against your long-term vision. Will this choice compound into your goals, or will it detract from them? Delayed gratification is not deprivation, it is preparation. The sacrifices you make today are the foundation for freedom tomorrow. A smaller purchase now, redirected into an investment, may become the very asset that creates your independence in 5, 10, or 20 years. And remember, money loves value creation. Wealth is not merely about how much you earn, but about how much value you provide to others. Solve problems, offer solutions, and make life better for people, businesses, or communities, and money will naturally follow. The more people you help, the more wealth you attract, not just in dollars, but in opportunities, relationships, and influence. Wealth grows when it serves others, and it multiplies when it contributes to a purpose larger than yourself. Another key to lasting wealth is risk managed wisely. The wealthy do not gamble blindly. They study, plan, and then act decisively. Fear and procrastination destroy more wealth than failure ever could. Take calculated risks. Invest in opportunities you understand. Make small, deliberate moves and learn from each step. Over time, the compound effect of calculated risk and disciplined action produces enormous results. Cash flow is king. A large income means little if it does not continue to flow. Focus on building streams of passive income, investments, rentals, royalties, businesses that continue to generate value even when you sleep. Your wealth should work as hard as you do, if not harder. The goal is not just to make money, but to create systems, habits, and assets that continue to serve you long after the initial effort. Do not neglect the power of generosity. Contribution multiplies wealth in ways that dollars alone cannot. Share your knowledge, time, and resources with others. Teach, mentor, and invest in the growth of people around you. When wealth flows through you, it creates trust, opportunity, and abundance. The energy of giving always returns, often in ways you cannot predict. A generous spirit attracts partnerships, clients, and collaborators who accelerate your success. Finally, remember that building wealth is not a sprint. It is a lifelong journey. Your actions today shape the life you live tomorrow, the legacy you leave, and the influence you have on others. Be consistent. Be disciplined. Be patient. Let your mind, habits, and resources work together to create a life of financial freedom, purpose, and impact. Now, I want you to take action. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Pick one principle we've discussed. Plant a seed now. Open a savings account. Invest in a book. Start a side project. Write down your 10-year vision. Or connect with someone who can guide you. The smallest action taken consistently has the power to transform your life. Commit to daily discipline. Commit to thinking rich. Commit to building wealth that lasts, not just for yourself, but for the generations that follow. Wealth is waiting for those who prepare, act, and persist. It chases those who value time, create value, manage risk, and think long-term. Start where you are. Start small. Dream big. And watch as the life you imagine becomes the life you live. Your journey starts now. Take that step today.